Wake up, guys. There's a real scenario we could be up through all of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
That's a real scenario. And now when you have that paradigm and that view of what we're going to do, anything short of that is actually a success. When you go, it's okay, we'll be done by Christmas, and we're not, broken heart.
We are here because we know the outcomes in our lives are within our control. That taking absolute ownership of how we eat, sleep, train, think, and connect with each other is how we'll optimize our health and happiness. That chasing excellence is how we grab hold of what is possible. Our mission is to live on the run, always chasing, never stopping. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Chasing Excellence. How are you, Ben?
Good. Thank you, Patrick. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. We are obviously still in our kind of our remote edition of the podcast. And for anybody who maybe has stumbled into the show within the last 6 months, usually we did this in the same room for about the first 3 years. And for obvious reasons, that ceased to be like March, April, somewhere in that range. And so I started thinking about, when the lockdown started happening, when the pandemic started getting serious, at least here in the States, we did a couple episodes talking about what's going on. We did an episode about in some ways that this is what we've been training for, this kind of unknown and unknowable. And then we got back into the regular flow of conversations, regular kinds of episodes. And I was thinking about recently that it might be interesting to just do a check-in. You and I just kind of doing a check-in to see, I think we're about 6 months into this lockdown, into this, what everybody's calling the new normal. And so I wanted to just get a sense from you of maybe the lessons you've learned over the last 6 months, with the context being we're probably looking at this to some degree for another 6 months. Maybe, obviously we can all wish that it was less than that, but chances are probably it's going to look like this for the next 6 months. And so I started thinking about the kinds of conversations we always have, right? We have conversations about running a gym, running a business, about optimizing our own health, about pursuing athletic pursuits. And so what I want to do is just kind of like get a sense from you of what you've learned in each one of these buckets, each one of these categories that we talk about often, just to see maybe what you've pulled out after these 6 months, and that maybe you'll lean into or utilize going forward in the next 6 months, say. And so I wanted to just kind of put it out to you. I'm really curious because I haven't been down to the gym in 6 months. What are you guys thinking about at CrossFit New England these days, knowing that, here in the Northeast, it's going to get cold soon. You guys have been doing a really cool job of doing parking lot workouts, but maybe at some point that's going to be really hard to do. So I just love to know what you guys are planning, thinking. What have you learned? What are you anticipating going forward?
Okay, so I think there's the gym aspect to this, and I think there's kind of like the how is this affecting and what have we learned outside the walls of the gym? Yeah, and there's definitely the parallels. That's what we love so much about CrossFit is what you do inside the gym is not isolated to that. It echoes outside the walls of the gym. That's what, if it doesn't translate to everyday life, it's probably not worthwhile to be spending your time in the gym doing it. So, for kind of taking the gym aside, I think the biggest thing, and this kind of comes from my wife, Heather, and she has really been really good at this, and she echoes it multiple times a week, which is, all these other moms and parents, and there's so much uncertainty about what's going to happen with school, and and there's everyone's so disappointed regardless of what the actual situation is, and God forbid they get people to school, and then 3 weeks into school they send everyone home, and there's this well-known kind of happiness equation essentially, which is, unhappiness equation, which is the difference between your expectations and your realities basically dictates how happy you are. And what Heather does a really good job of is not getting false hope. Having said that, she and I and the people around us are the most optimistic people that you could be around. Like we try really hard not to complain. We look on the bright side of things. We see opportunities, not obstacles. Yet what we don't do, I'm not putting ourselves on a pedestal. It's just something that's come really to light. It's been a magnifying glass put on this over the last 6 months, is the people that raise their expectations only to be let down.
Mm-hmm.
And raising your expectations is just a recipe for that. So the principle behind this comes from, it's the Stockdale paradox.
Yeah.
Which is, anyone that's read Jim Collins or anybody that's kind of dived into this research, or frankly listened to this podcast, you probably heard this before, but it is, in prisoner of war camps, the people that live the longest are not the optimists. It's not the people that say, it's okay, guys, we're going to get out by Christmas. We'll be out by Christmas, because Christmas comes and goes and they're still not out. Mm-hmm. It's okay, guys, we're going to be out by Valentine's Day, and Valentine's Day comes and goes and they're still not out. This is the pandemic. It's okay, guys, it's only going to be 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks comes and it goes and it's still not out. It's okay, guys, this is just for the spring. Summer will be different. And summer comes and goes and it's different. It's okay, guys, next school year will be different. Next school year comes and goes and it's still not different. And these people die of a broken heart because they get their hopes up only to be smashed again. They get their hopes up only to be smashed again. And in the prisoners don't last in that scenario. Now, the people that also don't last are the pessimists, the ones that are sitting there looking at every single negative, going this sucks, this is terrible. Whether it's the prisoner of war scenario or it is the, people in the pandemic. I can't believe my kids still aren't back to school and I have to work from home and ... Those people eat themselves alive, figuratively. Mm-hmm. They just can't stand it because every day is such a grind. Every obstacle is unsurmountable. What you look for in life, you see more of. If you're pissed off, if I say, yo, Patrick, I heard you're in the market for a new silver Chevy Tahoe. Mm-hmm. You see silver Chevy Tahoes everywhere. What you bring your attention to, you see more of. You bring your attention to the crap around you, you see more crap. If it's the realists that do the best, and Heather is a great realist. That's what I've learned from her over this pandemic. Don't say, so people around her are going, she comes home and she's like, people around me are going it's okay, we're going to be in school. And she's like, every single day I check my email expecting them to be saying school's off. Mm-hmm. Everyone's at home. Mm-hmm. Every day she expects that to happen. Now, if it doesn't happen, cool, sunshine and rainbows. Right. It's awesome. The deal is be an extreme realist. If it's raining outside, don't complain about the rain. Package it and sell water. If it's sunny out, awesome, it's sunny out. Enjoy the sun. If crap starts falling from the sky, package it up and sell fertilizer. It doesn't matter what's going around you. Embrace the harsh realities and make the best of that situation. And the last thing you want to do is get your expectations so high that you have nothing left but be set up for disappointment. I'm not saying be a pessimist. I'm saying be a realist. And there's a real scenario that we could be in this thing right through wake up, guys. There's a real scenario we could be up through this through all of 2021. Mm-hmm. That's a real scenario. And now when you have that paradigm and that view of what we're going to do, anything short of that is actually a success. When you go, it's okay, we'll be done by Christmas, and we're not, broken heart. Mm-hmm. So this gap between expectations and reality, to me, is the number one thing I've learned about this. And this is not being a pessimist at all. I feel it's being an extreme realist, and being a realist actually sets you up to be an optimist, because that's what Stockdale was. Stockdale was able to live the longest in the prison war camp because he goes, hey, listen, there's a real good chance we might not get out of here today, tomorrow, or even next year. But you know what? Right now, today, this moment, I can deal with this. I can deal with what's in front of me right now. And we take the right perspective on things, it changes the way you deal with it. Because if you get too caught up in the magnitude of what's in front of you, you lose sight of what's actually in your control and you get a different future focus. That's when you get overwhelmed. It's not about whether your kids go to school next week, next month, or whatever it is. It's not about whether you have to deal with these different scenarios. It's what's in front of you right now and the perspective you bring to it. If you can deal with this minute, this second, it's a pretty good lesson to be pulled out of this whole thing.
How much have you and Heather over the last 6 months talked about that consciously? Like how much has that been part of the conversation? Or is it that you both feed off each other in such a way that you don't need to talk about it because you're both on the same page and you're both looking at it the same way?
No, we probably talk about it every single day.
Yeah.
So we have and maybe that's an exaggeration, but it feels like it. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's hard not to. Do you think you've experienced like a day where like the pandemic and COVID hasn't come up? It's like, it's really hard not to have it be there. Now, what we do, as you know well, is we try to live our lives by principles. Mm-hmm. When you live your life by principles, not by feelings and emotions, you get a much steadier sea. It's not as rough. It's still the same sea. But what you're doing is going like, hey, like it's never as bad as it seems. It's never as good as it seems. Now that principle translates to everything. You came in CrossFit Games last weekend. We came in 11th place in one workout. The next workout, we came in 27th. Mm-hmm. It's not as bad as it seems. Stay the course. Now, if you go like, oh my God, this is so terrible. Like, guess what's probably going to happen the rest of the weekend? Not good stuff. But the similar thing happens. You come in 3rd place in the first workout and 4th place in the next one, and you're sitting in 1st place overall. It might not be as good as it seems because guess what's coming up? The handstand hold. So don't get you just don't get rocked. If you live your life by these principles and not by these emotions, which is built into our DNA as humans to help keep us alive, yet they don't serve us now like they used to when we had to build shelter every night. You had to ward off these things that could kill you every day. That's why your emotions are still a part of this thing, yet they don't serve you in this today's society where we have cars and the internet and refrigerators and air conditioning. It's just like it's not a real thing anymore. Like we have to realize that these emotions that get the best of us are not serving us. And then realize that voice in your head is telling you a story. And that story is going to end up dictating your life. That's it. That's the whole deal. A to B, soup to nuts, the 101 of mental toughness, fortitude, success literature, whatever you want to do, is tell yourself the right story. Mm-hmm. Something gets in your way, cool. Let's overcome it. Like somebody talks crap about you on social media. Yep, that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Like what are we surprised about? Like it's supposed to be a brick paved road with unicorns running around and like everything is perfect. Suffering is built into us. It's the only thing that's guaranteed in life is you're going to suffer. Happiness, not guaranteed. Suffering, guaranteed. It's a part of it. Now, because you're suffering doesn't make you a unique snowflake. You're not a special flower. This isn't happening to you. So get past that aspect of it and realize this is a part of the deal. This is what I signed up for. When I came through the birth canal and light shone in front of my eyes and I started screaming out, like second one, suffering. Like you were born into this. I was born in the darkness. Like it's a part of the whole deal. Like once you get over that aspect of it, then you start to see the realization of what's in front of you and you get to then see the opportunities that are in front of you. Cool. Like I get to spend more time with my family. That's something I've been wanting to do for a really, really long time. Cool. Like my career's over. Cool. Maybe this wasn't the right career for me. Like get it. Check. Maybe I have more time to educate myself. Cool. I don't have time. I'm really stressed out because my business is on the fritz. Cool. This is just like it was back in the early days of being an entrepreneur. This is why I signed up to be an entrepreneur because I loved that stuff. I loved the stress of it. I loved the high stakes. I loved the risk because that's what I want to be. That's why I want to be an entrepreneur. It's like there is no woe is me moments for anybody unless you want to lean into that woe is me moment.
What advice do you have for folks? And this is a similar question that we've talked about before, but in this current environment, with the constraints we're all living in, what kind of advice do you give folks who find themselves in a house maybe with people who don't have this kind of attitude, and they're trying really hard to maintain it? Because we're 6 months in. The first couple months we could all kind of grit our teeth and get through it. Now it's getting it's getting much harder. What advice do you have for folks who maybe don't have a Heather in their life to be able to lock arms and say, okay, where's the opportunity here? What advice do you have for folks who find themselves struggling to maintain that kind of mentality in a house or within a small group of people who are complaining, are setting up unrealistic expectations, all those things?
Yeah. Great question. The first one is, it's a great question and the right question, because environment is number two. Environment is the number two factor that's going to dictate how much change you make in your life. So if you are in a hellhole, you are in a place that just is deep rooted, seated negativity, hatred, whatever it might be, that's a really hard uphill battle. But it's number two. Number one is your mindset. Mindset is everything. It is the whole deal. And when you have the right mindset, you realize like even that can't penetrate me. Even that, with the death, the destruction, the hatred, the suffering that Viktor Frankl went through, they couldn't penetrate his mind. He still had the ability for reasoned choice. That gap between stimulus and response is the ability to choose. And even with all of that going on around him, he chose to see the positive in that moment. So it's not saying it's easy, because it's way harder to do that in a Nazi prisoner of war camp than it is at CrossFit New England.
Yep.
But where you are is not as bad as a Nazi prisoner of war camp. It's just not. Where they're ripping the people you love the most out of your hands and throwing them in a furnace. That is not something you're going through. So gain some perspective and take some ownership over it. So if you are in such a bad situation, so the other side of that is, I didn't have a Heather before, and Heather didn't have a Ben before. We grew into this. When we met each other, neither one of us, we were just positive people. We weren't the realists. We didn't have these principles. We didn't know what we were doing, but we kind of morphed into this with intention and on purpose. And it's the intention, it's the on purpose, and it's you taking ownership that matters. We have some new members to the gym that recently, I gave one of these talks after a class. And this young married couple came up to us and said, yeah, thank you. We were in a really negative environment with our families, and we decided to move away from our families because of this. There are a lot of people, frankly, it's not the majority. It wasn't me, so I sympathize as much as I can. With the people, if you are in a destructive enough environment, even if it's the people you love the most in the world, you need to get out. That's the harsh reality of that. If it's that saying that like your upbringing has more to do, where you are raised has more to do with the level of success you see in your life than any other factor. More so than your smarts, your drive, your willpower, your athletic ability, your business acumen. Where you are raised dictates more than any other factor. Because of that, what people don't realize is they have control over that. It's just harder than other things to change. If the world you are living in is so negative and so destructive, I'm not saying you don't have a Heather. I'm saying like if it's lukewarm, work through it. But if it's whatever the right next thing is, if it's scalding hot, if it's ice cold, I don't know which one they're right. if it's an extreme in the bad way, get out of it, sister. Get out of it, bro. Like you need to take ownership of this. And when you do that, that's the first step to me. Actually, I take that back. That's not the first step. That's a massive step way down the list. The first step is realizing that you are in control of your mind. That's it. And there's new research out there that I'm kind of digging into now, which I'm really excited to bring the podcast in a little bit. But this mind thing is mind-boggling. It's no pun intended, but mind-boggling. Like to the point where your athletic ability actually has nothing to do with your athletic ability. It is it's all your mind. Now you're born into a certain set of biological genetics and DNA. Once that's set, the deck of cards, everything else is your mind. That's it. It's that great quote by one of those Florentini. I'm going to butcher it. I don't remember. But he said, everything I have is because of my mind. Everything else is just bands of rubber hanging off my body. It's just, that's it. You are nothing more than a bunch of rubber bands and sticks, muscles and bones. Everything else is your mind. And once you take ownership of that, you start working on that craft and telling yourself the right story. And when you see an obstacle, you go, ooh, that's a trigger, not a real thing. Usually when I see this thing, I go down a bad way. Can I use this to maybe just, I'm not saying go down a different path, but just edge a degree or two away from where you used to be? And those 1% over time, Heather and I, we've been married for 10 years, know each other for more longer than that. Over 10 years is when this thing starts to manifest itself.
Yeah, and I think the most important part of that is, again, to bring back the context of this is probably what life is going to look like for the next 6 months to 12 months, to your point, right? And
yeah, but let's tell ourselves, oh, no, this is life forever. Go ahead, say that. We're going to be wearing masks forever. Okay, you're not going to go out in public without wearing a mask. Okay, now anything short of that is okay. But anything else over that, if you flip the other way, like, no, we're going to be cool by Christmas, setting yourself up for failure. And this is not, I'm not saying like go into competitive events saying like, I'm going to come in last. That's not what this is. It's about keeping all opportunities open, because you could come in first. This thing could be over tomorrow. Like, it's all those things could happen, but don't hang your hat on something and say, this is what's going to happen. That's when you're setting yourself up for the gap between realities and expectations. Here's to bring that to light. Just to maybe like tell a story to exemplify what I mean by that and the power of it. You're back when we used to jump on planes and fly around, right? You get to the airport, you check in for your plane, you get to the booth and you get there and they make an announcement over the loudspeaker. Flight 703 to Dallas, Texas. We regret to inform you that your flight is now delayed. Your flight time is going to be moved from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. 7 hours delays. We're sorry for the inconvenience. Have a good day. Like right away, you're like, what? Everyone's pissed because the expectation was it was going to take off on time. Now, what happens is after 2 hours, they go, flight 706 to Dallas, we have an update. That flight is actually now ready to board. Everyone's like, woohoo! Yes! Awesome! Pumped! Like, they're pumped, yet their flight was delayed 2 hours. It's just because the expectations changed. It's just all what we do to set ourselves up for this. It's just a matter of expectations. Now, if you set your expectations low, you're flying this budget airline, whatever it is, and then you're expecting, and they when you get in there, they unexpectedly have Wi-Fi. You're psyched. That's amazing. Cool. I didn't know. It's all relative to our expectations. So all we need to do is take the bigger, wider view and don't pin yourself to anything, and then start telling yourself a better story. So I started the conversation asking you about the gym and planning, and I'm totally fine that we skipped over that question entirely. But what it does, what I think I want to— The gym's the same thing, though. Totally. Right? No, I get it. Yeah. But I was thinking about tactics and specific lessons. But you're spot on, and yeah. But my question now is, and maybe just to start to wrap up, is there is, I imagine, though, still a need to balance the— I can deal with today. We can get through today. We'll figure out what happens tomorrow with
okay, but we've got to anticipate, we've got to plan for, we've got to make sure we're in the right position that if in 3 months it doesn't change, we're okay, or whatever that time frame is. So how do you balance, especially in these times, it seems like that's a really important balance to try to figure out, is the acceptance of today, but without closing your eyes and just hoping like hell that tomorrow, a week, 2 months, that you're going to be okay. Like, how have you thought to balance those two things out?
Yeah, there's when we talk about like the circle of control versus the circle of influence, and the circle of influence is massive, and it's all these things in your life that you ultimately can't influence. You have no control over. What you want to do is you want to lean so far into it, only if possible, focus on things that are inside your control. So what are those things? When you boil it down, there's only two things. Mm-hmm. There's only two things that you have control over. One is the mindset and the choices you make right now. That's it. The second one is how well are you preparing for tomorrow? Mm-hmm. That's it. So your effort and your preparation. That's all I want to know about you, Patrick, is how hard are you working, and are you working towards the right things? What we don't want to do is climb ladders really, really fast and realize they're leaning up against the wrong wall. Yep. The biggest nightmare in the world is we become really, really, really efficient and good at doing the wrong things. That's preparation. That's preparation. So what we need to do is figure out, what do we need to do? So in the gym world, we need to create some, really easy cash flow projections. Like, when are we going to run out of cash? Like, okay, we're good for 5 years. Okay, then probably don't need to take any massive action today. We're going to run out of cash in 5 weeks. Mm-hmm. Like, you got to take some massive action. So this is looking forward. We do want to look forward. We want to have an understanding of what's coming down the pipeline and prepare for all scenarios, and probably plan for worst case scenario. Yeah. So I don't want to say that it's a matter of being aloof. It's again going back to the extreme realist, and understanding that preparation is the number one thing that we want to do. I'm preparing my whole life for my deathbed. So that I can get to my deathbed, look back on my life and say, I did exactly what I wanted to do. I climbed every ladder to the top that I want to climb. I was leaning against the right walls. Said another way is, I spent my time usefully. That's all I want to be able to do, is say, like, I spent my time, the only non-renewable resource, I spent my time doing the right things. I'm so happy I did that. What we want to do is do the same things as business owners, or as parents, or as whatever it might be. As a business owner, when you are looking back on this in a year's time, you want to look back and say, I'm so glad that we put our effort, our resources, our time, energy, and money into that. Now, what that takes is some hindsight in the present moment. This is what is called being a visionary. This is what leadership is. This is you being able to have a pulse on your company, a pulse on the industry, and a pulse on what the changing landscape is going to look like for you coming down the pipeline. If you have that sort of understanding, you can make the right moves today. If you don't have an understanding of what the next little bit's going to look like, you're probably going to put your resources into the wrong buckets and be left with regret. So it does take this little bit of reflection mode. And what this happens usually is through, the saying is, not every reader is a leader, but every leader is a reader. You have to educate yourself. You have to get some understanding. So in all these different areas, and if you're a business leader, we need to be kind of like looking at these things. If you're a leader of a family, we got to, and reading, like whatever, like listening to podcasts, like going to seminars. It's all that means is educating yourself. Yep. So it doesn't need to be reading specific. But the idea is that if you are a leader, you have to have a pulse on what's going on so you can make the right choices now. And then speaking of choices, the biggest aspect of that is decide. It's better to make a wrong decision than it is to not decide. So this actually came up. I just had a call with, I FaceTimed Cole Sager before we chatted, and it rang forever. And I was like, I've only called him once. I talked to him every single week for 3-4 years. He's only missed one phone call in 4 years, and it rang forever. I was like, oh my God, he might not pick it up. And then he finally picked it up. And he was like, I was trying to decide whether to pick it up on my phone or my computer. And it's like, it doesn't matter what the choice is. The only wrong decision is not to make a decision and you miss the call.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't know what to get my child for Christmas. I don't know whether to get her the Barbie or the Legos. And the only wrong decision is not making a decision, not getting her anything at all.
Yep.
It's like what I've learned from working with some higher level leaders, a lot more seasoned than I am, is the speed at which they make decisions. And it's not even making decisions, it's the way that they execute on them. So when a proposal is made, some people need more data. It depends on the personality trait. Yep. They need more data. They're thought out. They're calculated. Other people are more instinctual and guttural. I'm more instinctual and guttural. I'm good at making a decision fast. I'm like, let's go, guys. That's awesome. Let's go do this. What I realize is that's not enough. The decision isn't a decision until you take action and move it forward. These really good business leaders, some are slow to make decision. Other ones are fast. But once the decision is made, the next morning when we come to business, the business looks different. It's totally changed. And that's how then you can figure out if it's the right move or the wrong move. You can make these decisions because you can learn faster. That's the whole thing is. These massive companies, Amazon, Facebook, Google, all they're doing is faster decisions.
Yeah.
They A/B test everything. They're doing thousands of tests a day and failing on half of them. When they fail them, they go, okay, that one's out. Now let's A/B test this, the A one, let's A/B test that against another one, okay? The B one this time, A is gone. And they're constantly making better and better and better things. And that's how they iterate so fast. They're literally making thousands and thousands and thousands of those choices every single day. Imagine if we had that capability as human beings, just to make the decision, what's the best one? Good, learn, build, measure, learn, iterate, go, build, measure, learn, iterate, go. That's when to me, life gets exciting.
All right, my friend. That was fun. Thank you very much. Thank you to everybody out there listening. Hope you're staying well. Please do check us back next week for another episode of Chasing Excellence. You can get every episode of Chasing Excellence wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Until next time, thank you for listening.